Hey, this is Rob Lundberg, host of Uncontaminated Sound. That was a little jingle created for this show by LA based Walter ETC, or as some may formally know as Walter Mitty and his makeshift orchestra. Welp, we've reached conversation number 54, in which I speak to Chicago based musician Josh Caterer, mostly known for his role as singer songwriter of the notable indie band The Smoking Popes, although more recently he's pursued a solo career, respectively releasing his entitled The Space Sessions in 2022 and recording during those unknown days of the pandemic, in which one never knew when live performances would happen again. Josh and his crew recorded a full length album in empty venues around the Chicago area in attempts to emulate such acoustics, bringing to life the sound we all longed for when guidelines and a bit of fear held us back. We discussed this process and much more. So please enjoy number 54 with Josh Caterer. All right, Josh. We are recording now. Once again, thank you for joining me on Uncontaminated Sound.
Thanks for having me.
Where to begin? Let's see. Cool. Where to begin? I guess let's actually start with your current work. I know you have a deep history in music, and I'd like to ask you about that journey. But I'm actually curious. You have the new album out, correct? Or it's coming out, correct? The Space Sessions.
It's out now. It's actually, as of this recording, it comes out today.
Oh, okay. Wow. So that would be December 17th, 2021. Yeah. But by the time this comes out, it'll be 2022. But I'm sure people will. I just want to give some context to for any viewers. Anyways, can you speak a bit about the project and what led you to that project? I guess this, what really you inspired you and really motivated you to create this project, I guess.
This particular album is kind of a follow-up album or a continuation of a series that I began with an album that was released earlier this year called the Hideout Sessions. And the idea there was born out of the pandemic lockdown. It was, the summer of 2020, clubs were completely closed. Some musician friends of mine and I were just feeling restless about wanting to do something. So we decided to put together a set of songs for a virtual performance that would take place at this club in Chicago called the Hideout. And we decided also to record that live stream performance and release it as an album. And we didn't want to spend a ton of time on it. We wanted it to be sort of immediate. So I didn't write any new material for the album. It was interpretations and new arrangements of old standard songs and sort of reimagined versions of songs that I had written for the Smoking Popes. And that album was so fun to do, and it was just such a satisfying project that we decided to keep going with it. And even before that album was released, we decided that there was definitely enough material available to us to do at least one more full-length album of similar material. There were a handful of songs from my catalog that I still wanted to reinvent. Not just Pope's. This album includes a song that I wrote for a different band I was in called Duval. But it's kind of I really do consider this a companion piece to the other album, and both albums were specific to a time when the clubs were not open, and they both originally existed as live streamed virtual concerts. So I don't know, even if there were to be another album in the series, it wouldn't be quite the same, because it wouldn't be the product of a lockdown, because clubs are open again. So I there's something kind of organic about these about both of these albums, because they were sort of playing the hand that you were dealt. I mean, if you wanted to play a show during that time period, it had to be, to an empty club.
Yeah.
But actually, last night we played the release show for the Space sessions at Space. And it was just an amazing experience to go back into that room, the room where we recorded the album and filmed the video of it. But this time to a room full of people, and to be able to have that exchange of energy that can take place, that sort of immediate visceral response that you can get from a group of people that are responding to your music. It was a really beautiful thing that I kind of brought a kind of closure to it sort of closed the loop of the project for us.
I've talked to so many musicians that long for that over this period too, that long for that cross transference of energy from going on stage and performing in front of a live crowd. Josh, are you there, or? Josh, are you there?
I am.
I think we kind of froze up a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it froze up here too, but it's working now. So hit me with that question again.
Well, I was just saying, making a comment regarding that over the span of my conversations, that through, particularly with performing artists, they missed that cross transference of energy.
Happening again with the freezing up. Did it happen to you?
Yeah. Zoom, or my connection seems to be strong on my end. How's yours, or?
I'm getting a lot of bars here.
I think Zoom has been kind of wonky on me in the last couple of days, but it's we're gonna work around it anyways.
Yeah, the magic of editing, right?
Yes. Well, I was just commenting that through my perspective, that in my conversations with numerous musicians, they just missed that transference of energy in front of a live crowd. So that must have been, like you said, the closing circle and the kind of project, an empty venue to recording a live stream and album to an empty venue to the full venue and a live audience experience. Yesterday, did you say last night? Was it?
Yeah, last night we played the release show for the album. It was wonderful.
Oh wow. So what can you tell me with these two albums that as a fan, say as a fan of, say, the Smoking Popes, what has kind of evolved from your material with them to your is it more of your solo album, is it, or do you have a new band, or?
They're solo albums. They're released under the name Josh Caterer, but the guys that I'm playing with now, when we perform, we are billing ourselves as the Josh Caterer Trio.
Hmm.
So it feels like a band, rather than just sort of hired musicians. This is really, we're pretty plugged into each other as a cohesive musical unit, and it feels like a band. And I would say that the difference between the Popes and this is that, like, the Popes have a pretty clearly defined musical style, which has always been dependent on the kind of contrast between the music and the vocals, like the music being kind of straightforward, driving pop punk, often like up tempo, just fast punk songs with kind of slower, more drawn out, crooning vocals over the top, and that was sort of the hook of our style, that sort of got us started, and we've explored that in different ways, but always kind of stayed true to like the basic musical voice of that band, which is pretty rhythmically straightforward. I would say like that's one of the things that define the Smoking Popes, is that like the rhythm section of the band is just driving things along in a pretty straight pop punk sort of way. Whereas the rhythm section of what I'm doing now, it isn't doing that. I feel like there isn't that much of a contrast between the music and the vocals. It's just kind of a different approach to styles, like interpreting songs in I don't know, in more of a free form way. And any collection of musicians that get together and play together for any length of time just develop a kind of a musical voice all their own. It's their own thumbprint, it's their own personality. And so this one is different than that one. And I think that our approach is a little more as punk as you would consider the Smoking Popes.
You kind of broke up in the midst of that a bit, but all I got was Smoking Popes, I guess. At the trail ended with that, but
you only got the word Smoking Popes?
Basically, yeah. You're frozen for a sec, like weird screen, but
oh. Well, do you want me to try it again?
Yeah, whatever. I actually no, I got a good amount of yourself comparing the differences to this new material comparably to the Popes. I was just saying that it froze at the trail end and kind of came back to you just saying Smoking Popes.
Okay.
Okay. So did you grow up in the Chicago area in Illinois, or
Yeah, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago.
Cool. And were you always interested in music, or were you always musically inclined, or did you find it music in the later stages of growing up? Or
always loved music, very musical household, and I discovered really young that I had some musical ability. Started playing the piano when I was probably 8 or 9, but didn't really love that. Was more interested in the guitar, so I switched to that when I was, I think, 11.
Hmm.
Actually, there was bass guitar in there for a couple years. My brother Matt took guitar lessons, and I took bass lessons for about 2 years. But somewhere shortly after that, we swapped because I picked up his guitar. He showed me the chords he was learning, and I just kind of took it from there. So self-taught guitar player, but with kind of the background of bass lessons and piano lessons. So I had whatever musical theory you would pick up from that.
Hmm. Hmm. And when do you when did you really start saying to yourself what you really want to pursue a career in music as a musician, a performing musician, recording musician, etc.?
Um, I I feel like I have always known since I was a kid, since I was maybe 10 or 11, that that was what I wanted to do with my life. I knew that it was something that I was more interested in and more passionate about than anything else.
Hmm.
And so I don't remember a moment where I was, you know, where it like occurred to me as, in my teens or 20s, like, hey, I should consider doing this for a living. I feel like from the very beginning, since I was like, a kid, it was just clear to me, like, oh yes, this is what life is about, man.
Hmm.
Music.
Yeah, yeah. And now, Chicago is a great music town. What were you listening to growing up? I guess what were you really influenced by,
Um,
sonically?
yeah. Well, our parents were music fans, and they had a lot of records. Our our dad had just probably a couple of hundred LPs, and he had a stereo set up in the living room where he had these shelves with just the albums kind of lined up there on the bottom shelves so that his sons could see them and have access to them. And so we were listening to his stuff, and he had uh, rock. He had he had all the Beatles albums, like original pressings of those. He had the Stones. He had Led Zeppelin. He had the Who. Um, I remember he had like some Ray Charles records. He had some Sinatra records in there. He had some blues stuff, Muddy Waters. Um, Hello.
Oh, Josh, I'm here. Kind of froze up again.
What's the last thing you heard?
I heard Muddy Waters, and that was it.
Muddy Waters. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were getting from dad like blues and rock and Walter May, Sinatra, that kind of thing. And then our mom liked country music, so uh, she had all these Willie Nelson records and Dolly Parton and Loretta Lynn and Merle Haggard. And so we were exposed to almost any musical style that a child could want.
Mm.
And so that was our foundation. And then when we got a little older, we sort of developed our own bands that we identified with. And some of the first ones there were Kiss. I think that's technically, I don't know if you'd call that the first album I owned because it was a cassette. I had a cassette of Kiss Double Platinum that we got at Kmart. But the first vinyl album that I ever owned was Thin Lizzy Jailbreak that I purchased at the neighbor's house. They were having a garage sale. And but loved them. But then our first, aside from Kiss, the first band that we got into where like we just were buying like all their albums was AC/DC. Because we liked Kiss, but the thing is, if you had Kiss Double Platinum, that's sort of the only Kiss album you ever needed, because it had, like, you'd go look at other Kiss albums and I'm like, well, like half the songs on here are on Double Platinum, so I don't need to buy any other Kiss records.
Yeah.
So we just, I don't know. With AC/DC though, it was more like, okay, Highway to Hell came out. This album rules. Like, what else do they have? And then we just went back and we just bought all of the Bon Scott albums. And that became sort of my first real musical obsession. And these were my real heroes were Angus Young and Bon Scott.
Now, when did you guys start kind of performing in front of an audience, like, or going to venues and doing that hustle? When did you kind of start the live performance aspect of your career, I guess, or career, but journey,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
In high school, when I was in high school, there was a club, an all ages punk club in Elmhurst, which is, I don't know if you're not familiar with this area, but it's another suburb of Chicago that we would go to and see punk bands play there, but like local punk bands. So it seemed attainable, rather than like going to big concert venues. And it's like those artists sort of seem like they exist on another plane of existence. Going to a punk club was like, this is cool and I can do this. So let's put a band together and start doing this. And this is sort of the level that we would be operating at. It's like these little clubs. So that was like, I was in high school. Let me see. I graduated in 90. So it would have been probably 89, 90s when we started playing in front of people. And then 91 is when the Smoking Popes officially became an entity.
And now, how long since you, when you formed the Smoking Popes, how long did it take to build up that fan base and get that traction with those guys?
Oh, I think we started in 91. I think we signed to Capitol in 95. So I would say it took us 4 years. Slowly building a local fan base.
And now, may I ask why? A lot of aspiring musicians go to the West or East Coast, to New York or LA. Why stay in the Chicago, or why stay in the Chicago area if you grew up in Illinois? Or I'm not too familiar with the area, so I'm not sure if you grew up. Was it outside the city? I guess my question is, why stay when you have the traction, and why not go, say, to LA or New York, or even at the time Seattle?
At the time, in the mid 90s, actually Chicago was an excellent place to be for alternative bands. because it had started, what started on the West Coast with like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Green Day. A couple years later, that spotlight shifted and focused on Chicago, and there was this period in the mid '90s when like every alternative band in Chicago was getting a record deal.
Wow.
I mean, you had the big ones that were like Smashing Pumpkins, Liz Phair, Urge Overkill, but then there were also a lot of other bands, Smoking Popes included, but like Menthol, Triple Fast Action, just a bunch of other bands that were kind of friends of ours that also got signed. So Chicago was a great place to be. And, we would travel to those other cities and play, but we always had like our strongest support was coming from Chicago, and we would always go out and tour, but then we would come home and we would play in those days, it was usually we would play at the Metro. Our manager at the time was a guy that owned that club, so we would come home, do a show at the Metro, and those were always these kind of triumphant experiences for us that would just be something that we look forward to. Some of our fondest musical memories are playing at the Metro in Chicago during the '90s. It was super special. So there was just really no appeal there was no reason for us to move anywhere else.
Yeah. Wow. And I must say, I haven't been to Chicago yet. I'm from Boston originally. I kind of transplanted to New York and moved to Brooklyn, and I'm a bit outside the city now. But I've people always say you would love Chicago, and I feel like I would. I just haven't made the trip out there yet. So I'm always curious about. I know it's culturally deep and rich in culture there, and musically, and as another city I must go to on my wish list, on my travel list, I guess. But I guess then, cool. And then, when did you start kind of, I guess, go on this other journey, say, like under your own name and your solo albums? Has this been a recent couple years where you're performing under your own name? When was that kind of transition, I guess?
Over the years, I've done some solo stuff, mostly acoustic, and it has always been like little temporary side projects, or it would be like I've released some gospel material under my own name. It's like songs that I had written for church that I ended up releasing and things like that. But it always felt like the solo projects were kind of it was always understood that it was a side project, and that it wasn't going to be something that I put that much energy into touring for, or playing shows to support it, or anything. So this now, these two solo albums that I have put out in the last year, is definitely the most focused that I have been on a solo project. And the most number of shows that I've played just under my own name. So it's been pretty fun. The Smoking Popes are still a band, and we've got shows booked for next year. It's just that we're not that active. Two members of the band, both of whom are my brothers, just became fathers for the first time. So they're like focusing a lot of energy on parenthood, and that's a wonderful thing. But we're not touring right now, and we're not very active. So has created a situation where I can focus most of my energy and attention on this other stuff. So it's been really fun.
Now, can you speak to why you chose these venues to kind of record the streams in and record the albums in? Is
Yeah.
there a deep history regarding musically about these venues? Obviously, I'm not familiar with the area or the history of Chicago, so
Well, yeah, these are both venues that I had played at in the past. But the reason why I chose the Hideout to start with is because when the lockdown happened in 2020, the Hideout was the first venue that I was aware of that developed a really strong online presence right away. They had it together where, within, it seemed like, within the first couple of months of the lockdown, they were having like weekly performances within their venue that was with no audience, just like you could tune into their website every week, and there was some sort of offering there, and they just had a really great way of doing it. But that's a club. The Hideout is a club that has always had really strong sense of community around it, more so than a lot of clubs. Like a lot of clubs will just be like, it's a cool club, it's a good place to go see a show. But like the Hideout is more like a place that people feel personally connected to, and like it's like part of the fabric of Chicago in some way. It's hard to describe, but like when I saw what they were doing with virtual shows, I was like, okay, we got to do one of those. Which is why, I started talking to like my bandmates, John and John, about like, hey, let's do a virtual show at the Hideout, and let's put together a set of music to do that. So they were the club that kind of inspired the whole thing to happen in the first place.
yeah.
And then once we had recorded that, immediately started thinking, well, there's got to be another album, and where else would we want to do it? And Space is the next club that just jumped to mind, because I just love it there. It's just such a wonderful vibe. It's different than the Hideout. The Hideout is like the sort of the motif of the Hideout is like a lot of wood, and it's sort of brighter and warmer inside the Hideout, and it feels more like I don't know, it's just like earthy in there. But then Space is darker. It's there's like black curtains, and there's more of like almost an elegant vibe to the room. But it's still kind of small and intimate. I just, in both cases, these are clubs that I love being in and would want to perform there and would want to spend time there. And so it was part of solidifying an ongoing relationship with those particular clubs.
I'm sure that kind of built off your energy, I guess, right? Just knowing this space, or just having that familiarity with those spaces, and just affection, it sounds like, for the venues, must have maybe just maybe I'm making an assumption, but according to the energy of your performance, even if there was nobody there, I guess. But how was the reception regarding the live stream? I at the beginning of the pandemic, I think so many people were just trying to live stream or create and stuff like that. How was I guess what do you say, viewership for a live stream? I guess was that did you get good response? Would be a better question.
We did. it, I can't remember what the numbers were, but
Yeah.
we were happy with that. It was like not necessarily what we were primarily concerned about
Yeah.
with either of these live streams. The live stream was like a vehicle for us to be able to make a recording that we would release as an album. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, in both cases, we were more focused on the capturing the audio of the performance in a way that was going to be clean and sort of an album quality performance, rather than like projecting something to the video that was going to be like, I don't know, immediate like that.
Yeah, it sounds like the video is just a side product of the ultimate product, which was the
Yeah.
album.
Although I would say that the video that we did for the space sessions is something that I'm really happy with. We had some more time to put that together in a way that it was going to look good. The Hideout one looked all right, but it was just cameras on tripods that you sort of switched one to the other. Whereas the space sessions, we actually put a film crew together, and my friend Brian Buchelt was the video director for that, and he brought in some cameras that were like handheld, and he had a couple of camera people that had them on their shoulders, and so there's like movement that's more kind of professionally coordinated. So I think the videos for this one look a lot better, and we did a little more with the lighting. The Hideout one was just, the lights were just flat.
Yeah.
But this one, we have lights kind of moving and doing different things. And so we're using more of the videos from the space sessions for promotional stuff than we did with the Hideout.
And in recording, did you notice any difference in sounds, or say recording from venue comparatively to the studio? There was a bit of freeze again.
Yeah, I missed your question.
Oh, the question was just, did you notice anything recording-wise at the end result? Any difference in sounds regarding recording in a venue comparatively to in studio?
Yeah, it's entirely different. Recording in the studio is usually about trying to deaden the sound. You know, so you're putting your amp in like a small enclosed space, or you're doing your vocals in like a vocal booth that's like the size of a closet that has all this foam all over the walls to just make everything as dead sounding as possible, so that when you mix it, you can then have like a clean track that you can do anything to that you want. If you want to make it sound bigger, you can add whatever reverb or anything to a clean track, which is entirely different than recording in a live venue where the room is open and the sound is bouncing around, and like it sounds live. And so there's all this kind of natural reverb that is baked into the raw tracks, which kind of limits what you can do with that when you're mixing it. I mean, it's going to sound like a live performance. So it's almost like you're doing it in reverse. Whereas if you record something in the studio, you're taking kind of flat tracks and trying to make them sound more live. But with this, we were taking tracks that sound live and trying to clean them up so that it removes some of the natural reverb or the bleed from one mic to another. That's another thing about recording a live album, is that the drum mics will pick up the guitar amp a little bit, and the vocal mic will pick up the drums, and so there's a lot of just sort of trying to deal with that, trying to clean things up.
Hmm. It's interesting. I never thought as a musician, so I never would have, really understood, the deep differences behind recording in a venue comparably to studio, but totally makes sense with a venue, the sound bouncing off the walls comparably, like the eggshell kind of wall patterns of the studio, deaden the sound. That's fascinating, actually. That's something I didn't really consider, but I've never had to record an album myself, so that's cool knowledge for, at least for me. That's really cool to understand that process in the different types of environments. I guess I guess looking back over your span of your breadth of work, I guess musically, have you noticed any changes or evolution, or have you grown in any way musically wise or material wise, or incorporated different elements, or have you kind of I don't know, have you ever looked like, or you just performed, have you ever actually had that, like, I guess, retrospective moment of like, oh yeah, I started here and now I'm kind of here at this moment? But
Yeah, especially when it comes to vocal delivery. I listen back to the early recordings that I made with the Popes, and my vocal style was pretty raw and underdeveloped, and it sounds to me like I was just sort of shouting, and I hadn't gotten comfortable with my vibrato yet, and I hadn't figured out how to breathe properly.
mm,
So I would do vocal takes, some of the real early stuff, as I was really pushing and shouting at the top of my range. There are some songs where I couldn't sing the song all in one take, because like my voice would get tired in the middle of the song. So I did the first half of it, took a break, got a glass of water, and then went back in and finished it,
mm,
because I just wasn't singing the way you're supposed to sing. And then I figured it out eventually, and you want it to be sustainable.
mm,
So to me, it does sound better and kind of more mature as I go along.
yeah, yeah. Did you ever have like any coaches, mentors that really helped you or trained better in musically, or was it all more self-taught and good, learn on the road and stuff, as as you progressed the project? And
I'm self-taught. Yeah, I've never had vocal coaches. um I mean, just heard, sometimes I've heard interviews with singers where they talk a little bit about certain principles of singing. I've always heard people talk about this difference between like singing from your diaphragm,
mm,
rather than like using your chest voice or your head voice. And I don't fully understand the difference between those things. I, I don't know if I've ever utilized what people would consider to be a head voice. I'm not even sure what that is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. I don't know what that is. No clue either.
Yeah.
So, um, well, uh, I guess to kind of wrap up, I guess, man. I know actually here in the city, or around the city, venues have actually in the last couple of days have been kind of shutting down and stuff. Have you seen that in Chicago the last couple of days with the Omicron or anything like that? Or
I heard that that the mayor, Lori Lightfoot, had made a statement about possibly imposing some shutdowns, kind of like they're going to keep their eye on the numbers, and if things get worse, we're going to have to start shutting things down again. But I haven't seen any of that actually put into place yet.
Okay. Yeah, it was just kind of like an outlook, like and this is going back to like so many conversations with other musicians saying that it's so hard these days to project, to try to book a tour, or plan out a tour,
Yeah.
because then they're either like canceled, like, and so they've had to keep it hyper local, either in New York or just the region. And, I assume it's been similar cases in your end too. And but like you said, you have a few Smoking Pope shows, booked out for next year, or you have.
Yeah, we've got some stuff in April that we're planning on doing. It hasn't been announced yet. I think there is a little bit of wanting to tread carefully and see how things go. You're right. Anytime you book something now, you're doing it with an open hand, because there's this understanding that this might not happen.
Yeah.
So you want to just emotionally brace yourself for the fact that these plans you're making, they might not come to pass.
Which may lead into our opportunity for a third album for the series.
I guess so.
Well, I don't know.
I don't wish for that to be the case.
No.
I just want clubs to stay open.
Yeah.
But if they close down again, I guess we'll play that hand if that's what we get dealt.
Have you done any particularly in the summer, have you done any live like outdoor shows and stuff, or?
Yeah. Actually, the Popes played a couple of festivals over the summer. Wicker Park Fest in Chicago, and then another one up in Skokie, which is a northern suburb. And yeah, it was really fun.
Cool. I guess final question is, where can we find the Space Sessions? Where can we listen to or order a vinyl, or where can we get the good stuff, I guess?
Your best bet is to go to pravdamusic.com, where at this point you can order a CD. The vinyl has been delayed until March. And I don't know if the other bands you've talked to are in the same boat, but like vinyl production is just backed up right now because Adele hijacked the vinyl production industry.
No way.
With her new album, and she printed up like millions of copies of her new album on vinyl. And so basically every vinyl production plant in the world was only making Adele albums for a little while.
Wow.
And so every other musical artist on the planet Earth had to wait for her to get done making her album. And so everybody now is backed up. And so every band that I am aware of other than Adele now has to release first on CD and digital, and you'll get the vinyl when you get it. And what we're being told now is March for the vinyl.
Okay.
But isn't it worth it that everybody can have their precious Adele records? Sacrifice the fact that every other musical artist on earth has to sacrifice to make that happen. Well worth it, wouldn't you say?
I actually did not know that. I had no clue that happened. Wow, that's crazy. That's for one artist, you know, and
For one artist, yeah.
I doubt that all those vinyls will be sold. To be honest,
I doubt it as well.
yeah, I don't feel like her fan base is just vinyl people. You know, I don't know. It doesn't kind of you know, seems kind of like they clash. But anyways, that's wow, I didn't know that. Wow. Anyways, so new album we can check out, and anything else? Anything you're looking forward to or excited to? But like you said, you know, COVID, everything's kind of pending. So, um,
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to trying to stay alive and healthy
yeah, yeah,
and just keep plugging along.
cool. Well, Josh, thank you for your time once again. I'm looking forward to diving deeper into the space sessions and the hideout sessions as well, and actually the history of Chicago and the music venues, because
Awesome.
I have to educate myself on Chicago. It sounds like an amazing place.
It really is. It's a great city.
Well, be well, sir, and best of luck in you know, with the, you know, performing in the venues. I hope you do get a chance to tour and perform more, you know, in live studio. I mean, live venues and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Take
And thanks
care.
for having me on again.
Of course. Bye.
Okay. Bye.